Okay, so I hope we can all see my screen. Hello.
Yeah, we can
Yes,
see
we
that.
can.
All right. Okay, that's okay. Okay, so we want to continue with where we left off the last time. I think we were about to start with the array. So today we'll be looking at arrays, and then I think we'll look at objects also, arrays and objects. Then if there's more time, we can look at maybe the dates or maybe an if or else statement. But the main topics for today should be the arrays and then the objects. Okay, so like we did the last time, I already have my HTML file opened. So you can open your HTML file, maybe a new one probably, so we can use for the practice. Then later on, as we go further, we can use the one that Eugene and Les developed for the continuation of the actual portal. But since we are just learning and trying our hands on the JavaScript basics, we can just create a new HTML document and then we can follow from there. Okay, so let's create our HTML document. And we said the last time that anytime we want to write a JavaScript file, we are supposed to enclose the JavaScript files or the scripts that we'll be writing within a script tag. So we have our script tag and then we open it and then we can write our JS files over here. So we can do something like write or your internal JS scripts. Yeah. So we looked at how to write an internal JavaScript file the last week. And then with that one, we wrote our JavaScript over here. Today, we'll be using the external way of implementing JavaScript within your code. To do that, we learned that for you to be able to call any external file into your HTML document, what you have to do is that you are supposed to have a link that references where that particular file is. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create my new JS file. So I can double click on this tab over here to create a new file. I can click on Ctrl S to save. Then I can call this, let me see, index.js. Now, I've saved this index.js in the same location where I have my index.html. So I come back to my index.html. Then I open another script tag. But this time around, I add the location. So I must put in source. So SRC stands for the source, as in where is the file you're referencing. So I say the file is here, index.js. So by doing this, I'm telling my HTML to go and look for a JavaScript file that is within the same location where the HTML is. Okay. Now we said we are looking at arrays. There are three ways of implementing arrays. The first is using the literal way. So we have the literal way. We have the object way of creating an array. And then we have the constructor way. Of creating an array. Now with the literal way of creating an array, when we talk of literal, we are saying that we are implementing the array point blank, like instantly. So we can do something like we create a variable, we say array1 should be equal to, we open our fixed brackets, we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the literal way of creating an array. We have fixed brackets, and then we have a collection of objects within the fixed bracket. So possibly anytime you see a fixed bracket anywhere, it means that we are dealing with arrays. We learned last week that anytime you see curly brackets, and then within the curly brackets there is a key and then there is a value, then we are dealing with objects also. So we want to use the object way. With the object way, we say something like array2 should be equal to create new, and then we call the array object. So once we do this, we've called the array object. Then so once we do this, we've called the array object. So yeah, once we do this, we have called the array object. To use the constructor, we come down and we say array3 should be equal to let's say new array. And with that one, we can say let's just say boy and then girl. And now let's try and visualize our output to see what we have in there. So we can do the document.write. We said the document.write is used for writing out outputs. So we want to have an output on our HTML document. So the document over here stands for the HTML document, and then we want to write into that HTML document. Now the next question is, what do we want to write into our HTML document? We want to write array1 into our HTML document. Let's come back here. Let's refresh this page and see. So now I have my index.html already open. If you don't have yours, you can just go into your file folder and then you double click on your index.html. So let me just close this. And then, yeah, let me close this also. So you come into your file folder where you have your HTML document, you open it. Now, because I've referenced my JavaScript file and I'm saying the document should have something written in there, and what it should have is the array. You can see my array here. Now let's go back and see how the others also play out. Now we want to have the second one, our array2 display. So array2. Okay. Now array2 isn't giving me any error, but there's nothing also showing, meaning that that array is probably empty. Now, anytime we call this new array, indeed we have called an array, but that array is empty, so there's nothing going to show. So we want to populate the array with data. So we have our array object, but it is empty. So what we would want to do is we would want to say, let's say populate array object. To do so, we call the object. The object is array2. Then when we call the objects, since arrays deals with indexing, we can use an index and say 0 should be equal to, I don't know. Let me use the same. Let me use fruits, mango. Then array2, let's say at index 1, we want to have apple. Let's refresh our page and see. Now we have our next array showing over here, mango and apple. So the last time we also looked at how if we don't want our let's say our output to appear on the next line, what to do, and we said we use the break in doing that. So I can just put in here an assignment and then say should have break. So I open this tag and then break. Now this break is going to tell the HTML document that anytime it inputs and outputs into that document, it should break it and send it to the next line. So the BR stands for break. So we have our array1 and our array2. Now let's see. What do we have for the third one? What's our third array? Then our third array, we have boy and girl. So what we've done now is that we've accessed array, learned how to create arrays, and then in creating the arrays, we've learned about the three ways of creating these arrays. And then we've looked at how to write those outputs into our HTML documents also. Now there are what we call array methods, and these methods are functions that we implement upon the arrays to give us some kind of outputs. So it helps us to manipulate these arrays to suit what we would want. So let's look at some examples of those array methods. So one array method that we can look at is concat. So let's say we are working on a project, and then maybe the project that you are working on, you have multiple arrays coming, and then you want to make or like add those multiple arrays into one complete array. So what you can do is, since we have an array1, array2, we can say, let's say document dot write. We want to write a concatenation script to combine two arrays into one array. So we want to do array1 dot should we call concat, then array2. So we have our two arrays now being meshed together into one array. So this helps us to merge our arrays together. So these methods are much more of like, they are functions that have already been written. You don't need to worry your head about these functions. Just know what these functions do, and then you call these functions, which are methods, and then you have the kind of manipulation that you want to have on those particular arrays. So the method we have over here is concat, which deals with combining two or multiple arrays together. Another thing that we can look at is we have what we call reverse. So this reverse would allow us to reverse our array. So if I call document dot write again, and then I want the inverse or the reverse direction of my array, I can call my array1, and then I call the method reverse on that array. Now you realize that anytime I call the method, there is brackets, parentheses that are following. Without these parentheses, what you will have is the actual function. So the parentheses allows a return, as in a call. It makes it a callback, meaning that when you say a callback, you are actually calling the function to work. So let's look at our output. Let me add this. So now my array, which used to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is now 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Another, so let me put here reversing an array. I think another thing we can also look at is index of. So let me just bring this in shortly. The last week I made mention of indexes, and I said indexes are a way of finding out the positions of your values. So index deals with the position of the values within within an object. Let's say an object, a list object or an array object. Okay. So if I want to find the index of array one, I can say document. Let us write array one, and then let us get the value at position 0. So the value at position 0 now is 6. Now I'm having this because I've reversed the array. So now my first value within the array is what? 6. Let's comment this out. Let's see. Now my first value is 1 because it is now dealing with this particular array. So when we say we are indexing, if I call this array, what happens is that it takes this array and then wherever there is 1, it assigns 0 to 1. Then it will assign 1 to the 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. So with indexing, there's a start and then there's an end. Indexing always starts from 0. Normal counting starts from 1, but indexing starts from 0. And then indexing ends at your n values minus 1. When I talk of n values, I'm talking of the total number of your values minus 1. It's going to be the total, it's going to be the end of your index. So for example, in here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 minus 1 is going to give me 5, which is the end of that index, which is the end of the array. So when I call 5, I'm calling this particular value, which is 6. So that's what indexing talks about. We are just finding the positions of the values that are within this particular array objects. Okay, so we now know about indexing. So what made me talk about this index is we wanted to look at an index of, which is another method. This one, bring this here. So index of, you can see document dot write. We want to find the index of let's use array 2, and then we want the index of apple. Let's see what we have. Now the index of apple over here is 1. So I will just comment all of this so that we see the actual output. So the index of apple is 1. Now if I want the index of mango, the index of mango is 0. So now it is giving me the positions of the value that I put in here within the array 2. Okay. So that's another method that we can look at here. Index of. Another thing we can look at is we have what we call includes. So maybe you have an array and you want to check whether the array contains a particular value. You can use the include to do that manipulation. So documents that you want to write this. Document dot write. So let's see. Array 1 dot includes. Array 1 dot includes. Let's see. Check what includes. 5. I want to add a break function so that it separates our outputs. So we have true. The reason why we have sorry, so we have true over here. The reason why we have true over here as our output is because the index of returns a boolean value. Whenever you check within your array and then you have the value you specified within the include, if it is inside the array, it is going to return a boolean of true. If it is not, it's going to return a boolean of false. So I was saying that it should go into array one and it should check whether array one contains 5. Now there's another thing we have with this includes, it takes into two parameters. These parameters are what we call sometimes as arguments, and the argument is the first argument. The includes method takes in the elements, and then it starts. The starts over here is talking about the starting point of your search. As in, if I have an array and indexing starts from 0, and I have the collection of values within my particular object, and I'm saying I want to search for a particular value within that object, where do I want to start searching for? Now, we are saying indexing starts from 0, right? So I want to start searching from 5. So let's see what happens. So I'm saying you should check if 5 is in the this array. You should start checking from the position 5. It's returned false because at the position 5, when it starts searching from there, there is no 5 in there. At the position 5, we have 6 over here. So when it starts searching from this particular value, it is 6 and above that is in there. We don't have any 5. Let's start counting from maybe 2 or 1. So I come to the start and I say, let's start counting from 2. And then we can have the value to be true over here. So that's it includes. But defaultly, I mean, if you want to just check if a particular value is in an array, you can just, if so it depends on the use case. Maybe you want to check from a particular value, maybe from the middle to the end, or from the you want to only check if your array contains a particular value by your starting point of the search or your slice area, as in the sub array that you want to start from is maybe just the last 5, then you can use this includes, and then you at the start position you enter the position you want to start, which would mean maybe starting from the last 5, and then you can check if that array contains that particular value you are looking for. Okay, so that's with the includes. What other thing we have? I think we should look at just pop and push, then we can move on. Yeah, okay. So we want to look at pop and push. They do two things so differently. So we have pop. Pop is just going to go into your array and then it is going to give you. It's just going to get the last value of your array. Let's see. So array one dot pop. So when it's updated, the pop will always give you the last value. It is always going to remove the last value within your array. So that's the function of pop. And then we have push. Whenever you use push, push is saying that we want to push something into our array. We want to push something into our array. So what we do is we document the write and then we use push over here. What do we want to push into our array? So array 1 enter 6. We want to push 7. So let's do this rather. Let's cut this. Let's just say give us array 1. Then let's push 7 in here. So now we have 7 in addition to our array. The reason why this 7 is there like that is because I think we've uncommented the. I think the reverse is still working. Let me see this. Okay, so that's it. So we've added 7. So this thing nearly confused me. Let's put this over here and then let's put this over here so we see the difference. So this is for the pop. So you realize that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 6, and we popped it. Now our value doesn't have the 6 anymore. It has removed the last value, which is the 6, from our array. And then we did a push, and then the push has now pushed, or you can say inserted, the value 7 into our array. So the pop deals with taking out the last value within an array, and then the push involves inputting a value at the last position of our array. So we have push, the push method, and then we have pop method. There's something we call every. So whenever you have something like array.1 and then you call every, the every needs a callback. That callback are functions. We'll get to functions. So callback are functions. So when you have your callback here and then you call your function, what is going to happen is that it is going to take each value within this array and then it is going to run that value against the condition that you have set in here, and then it is going to check if the value within that array agrees or supports the condition you have stated within your callback or not. So if each and every value or object within your array satisfies the condition, it is going to return true. If it doesn't, even if one fails, it is going to return false. So what the every does is that it checks if all the objects or values within your array satisfy a particular condition. So that's just by the way. Let me just try an example for us to see. I didn't want to use this because it involves a function. We've not done functions yet, but let's just look at it for the meantime. Let's see, we are checking, we put here value. So we want to check if condition satisfies. So we should return, let's check if value is greater than. Okay, so all the values over here are greater than 0. So let's check if value is greater than 0. So we return our function. So we can say we want to write the output. So document.write, and then we call our array 1, and then we say we should check each and every value against our function, which is the check. So okay. Let's see how to over here. Come back. So we have true over here. And the reason why we have true over here is because we are saying that it should check if all the elements within array 1, and these elements are 1 till 7. And we are saying that you check if each of the values from 1 to 7 is greater than 0. So it took 1. So what it did was it took 1 from this array, and then when it took the 1, it brought the 1 into this check, this function, which we have over here. And then when it placed the 1 in here, because value is here, it replaced the value with 1, and here it also became 1. So it is saying that it's one greater than zero, and then it comes there, it returns true. And it did the same thing for the two. Is two greater than zero? Is three greater than this zero? So it did it for all the values, and then it returned true. Now let me say, should check if each of the value is greater than. Let me use two. Should have false. We have false because one is not greater than two. Two is not greater than two. Two is equal to two. So that's with the every method. So there are a lot of other methods in there that you can look at maybe at a point in time. But these are a few of the methods that you can implement on the arrays. So let's quickly look at objects. So I think we did a little bit of the objects last week, and we were saying that with the objects, they are key value pairs. But the object also follows something similar, like the array. You can use the literal way, the object to, and then the constructor way. So let's quickly look at them. So you can say object one. Object one should be equal to the literal way, curly bracket. We have objects, then we can have our key, and we are saying our key should be equal to Z. And then let's say we then should have another key should be equal to detector. Let's come down and say var object 2 should be equal to. So this is the literal way of creating an object. This is the literal way of creating an object. Then let's look at the object way using the object itself. So once we do this, we have created an empty object. We have to populate the object. To populate the object, we call object 2. Then once we call it, we are saying that should so we should let's say a be equal to let's say 1. Let's try a be equal to 1. Then object 2, that bb should be equal to 2. So okay, so the next thing we want to look at is, so this is the objects, using the object way. Object way of creating an array. Then let's look at using the constructor. So with the constructor, you can say you can create a function. We can create a function and then we will name it we can create a function and then we'll name it objects. After creating the function naming its objects, we give it arguments. So we say a. Let's change from a. Let me do n, and then let me do n. Now, what should this function do? So, because we are using the constructor, whenever you're using the constructor, there's a need for what we call this, and has to do with like saying this particular instance of the objects. So, with this particular instance, we are saying should let m be equal to m, and then should let n be equal to n. So after doing this, we want to say let's create object 3 should be equal to let's say new objs. Then we put in, let me just say 3. So we have using the constructor. Using the constructor, let's try and output this. Let's see. So use documents dot. All right. Let's call object 1. Then we give a break, so it moves to the next line. Then we copy the same scripts and make copies of them. Then we call object 2. Then we call object 3. Because these are objects, it's going. So let's see. So we have objects. I'll just copy this. So for us to be able to see the value, let's call the key so that the value for those keys will show. So with object 1, I have a key. When I come to object 1, I have a key. The key is A. So when I call A for object 1, I have A is equal to Z over here. For clarity's sake, let me just comment everything above. Let me come back. So we have Z for the first object. That's we call the object. This object is going to give us all of this. And because it's giving us all of this, it is going to come as an object within your document. But if you want the actual value, then you would have to call the keys so that the values for those keys will then show. So with object 2, we have AA. So let's try .AA. So the value at the value for AA is 1. We have AA is equal to 1 over here. And then we come to object 3. Object 3, we have M and N. Let's see. And then the value for M is equal to 3 for the object 3. So these are the 3 ways of creating objects in JavaScript. Now, like the arrays also, the objects also have what we call methods. And then I explain again, the methods are functions that we want to implement on our arrays or our objects for us to manipulate them in a way to give us a particular output that we prefer. So with one method we can look at is like getting the keys of the objects. So assuming you don't want the values, you want only the keys of the object, we call the object, and then we say from the object it should give us the keys. So I'm saying it should give us all the keys of the object, but which particular object are we talking about? Okay, we want to use object 1, so that's the object we are talking about, so we put it in here. So let's look at the keys that we are given for object 1. The keys we are given for object 1 is A and then the B. Let's look at the keys that we would have for object 2. So object 2, then let's do the same for object 3. Let's see the output that we would have. So the keys for object 2 is A, A, B, B, and then the keys for the object 3 is M and N. And these same values are what we have over here. The key is A, the value is Z, the key is B. Then we have the key over here, AA, and then we have another key for object 2, the next key for object 2 being BB. Then when we come to the object 3, we created the function for the object 3 here, which is the objs. Then we passed in the keys. And then after passing the keys, when we say we are using the constructor, then we want to initialize the arguments that we are using. And then we are saying that the argument should be in relation to this particular function, the instance of that function at the point in time when it is being called or used. So we say this, and this is specifying to this particular object. And then we are saying that once it is referring to this particular object, then it should get this m, and it should let this m be equal to the value, which this m over here. So we initialize it that way, and then we call it which gate, and then we call now after initializing it this way, because we want to pass actual values in there, we pass the values here, and then the values here are being replaced. So we have this dot m would now be equal to the 3, and then the this dot n is going to be equal to the next 3. All right. Now, another way of also creating an object is using the create method. So we can do say, let's say object 4, right? Should be equal to, let's say, object dot create. We use the create constructor. This particular create constructor takes in only two values. These values are, it takes now, and then it takes an object. Now, if maybe based on the kind of data that you will be taking, the data is not defined, so you don't know, you are not able to tell the exact keys that you would want to use to initialize the data to be able to call them. You can use the object constructor, you can use an empty object. So when you use this empty object this way, you can call this object 4 again, and then you say object 4, you should let cc be equal to maybe 5, right? So when we call object 4 in the document, that's right, object 4. But object 4 is, like I said, an object, so my output is going to come as a fixed bracket with object, but I want the value for a particular key, which is cc. Let's run this and see. That value is what we have over here as 5. And that is the same value I place over here as 5. So this is another way of creating an object. Now, the same way we were looking at the keys, we can also look at just values. So let me just copy this and then come down here and say you should give me the values. So to make this much more clearer, let me just comment this one out. These are the keys. So let me leave the keys and then let me comment this one also out. Let's see. Okay. So we have only the keys showing, and then we have the values for only the last one that I printed out showing. So the same way we were getting only the keys, and that's the same way we are getting only the values for this object 3. Let me just do it for. So I can select this, and then select this. Oh, select this also and do values. So we have keys showing, only keys showing over here, and then we have only values showing over here. So with the object also, some we have looked at some methods, and the methods that we've currently looked at in the object is the create method. We've looked at the keys method, and then we've looked at the values method. And I think our time is almost up for us to continue something else. So I would like to end here and then answer any questions you might ask for this particular session. So I think the floor is open now for questions. So the first question I'm seeing over here is, can the objects be created inside the function? I don't really understand how you want to create objects within a function, but it depends on what you want to create. You can create stuff within functions. So you can have a function that is going to define, is going to have a line that defines how the object is supposed to be made. So once I call the function and then I put in my arguments, it should go and create the object for me and then return that output. So if that's what you're asking, then you can use functions to create objects.
Partner should provide a context. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
The section where you started on objects, you created the var object 2 when you initiated
Okay.
the function new object. Could you create
Okay.
those object 2.aa inside of that?
Inside here.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't done that before, so let's put it to the trial and see. So let's just bring it here. Let's name it trial. Let's copy it and make it trial. So let's say trial, and let's see GT equal to X. Document dot write trial dot video. Yeah, so it worked. We have it over here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So any other questions?
Yeah. It seems you understood what you told them. That's why there are no questions. Or maybe you've confused them. Is either any of these two, either they've understood everything was or they are confused. Yeah. So since we have the platform, um, as we always say, if you have any questions, you can put it on the platform. And before we end the call, let me quickly do some housekeeping job here. Um, so we ran some survey. I think on Friday. Is a Saturday? No, on Saturday. Yeah. And based on the responses that came in, the team has agreed on some 3 points, which I think I would want to discuss with all of us. Yeah. So with the survey, majority of the people or majority of our colleagues were saying the time or the time for the training is um, is close. So let's say the days in between
That
the trainings are very
yeah,
close. So they don't have enough time to practice what we thought we teach them before they come back for the next session. So and I think this came through several times and realized that it was a concern uh, that we have to pay attention to. So with that concern raised, the team has agreed to now. This week is not included. So after this week, we'll have a break for the next week. So the following week we will start, and when we start, we are going to have uh, 2 days in a week. So that will be Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we teach on Tuesday. We have Tuesday, Wednesday to um, go through, and Thursday we come back. Then we have the whole of the weekend, Friday up until the following Monday, to go through all the things we taught during the um, week. Yeah, so that is one thing that we agreed on. And the other thing is um, that was a concern, and it was something that I've always wanted to talk out. The GitHub. Yeah, so I realized that for some time I've been mute on the page, just looking at like at times I either I'll be busy at the office, or maybe at times I wouldn't be close to my machine. But I see people, colleagues, some colleagues helping um, those who are lagging behind. But I realize that there's something that keeps running through. Someone will ask a question, that will be someone will answer, let's say about 2 hours ago, and another person will come and repeat the same question, and I realize that it's not helping. So we have to stick to our GitHub repository, and any someone raises a question there, an issue there, we try to help the person. Anybody at all can go there to help the person out. When the person has a sim, anybody and you go there, you have it. So after every section, to drop the file that the instructor used on the GitHub repository, and you can have access to them. And the video will also be recorded as usual and will be posted in the group. Yeah, so these are some three key things that we picked from the survey and the other time. So at this point, I'll open the floor. Maybe you didn't get a chance to answer, fill the survey, or maybe you filled the survey, but you have a follow-up question to what you've just discussed. So I'll open the floor for like 5 minutes. If anybody has anything to say, we can discuss that and we end the session for today. I will also put these concerns on the page so that those of us who were not able to join the session today to also contribute to it. Yeah. Okay. Since we are all quiet, I think we all agree on what I just mentioned. So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll continue on Wednesday, God willing. Yeah, and as okay, someone is asking a question on the page. So I'm suggesting the new days to be Monday and Thursday. Okay, Mega Boy. We'll just put that into consideration. We'll just get about 3 sets of days on the page. Then we'll run a poll on it. So the majority, the one that the majority will vote for is what we will use. We want it to at least favor everybody on the page. Majority of us, yeah. So it's well noted. We'll add it to the list. All right. Thank you. Please, any other question? Okay, I can see John typing. Oh, okay. It wasn't a question. All right. So thank you very much, everyone, and continue practicing.
You're welcome, John.
Let's meet on Wednesday. All right. So take care and stay blessed. All right. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.